Good morning, everyone. This is Marshall Knapp here, a senior consultant at AspenTech. Welcome to our ACT V18 preview. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules for our webinar. Following today's webinar, you'll be hearing from us. We'll get an email out to you tomorrow with links to a comparison of ACT features by version, PDF of our slides that we have from today's presentation, as well as a recording of today's webinar. So keep an eye out for that. And also please be sure to check your junk and spam folder too, as emails like that do have the potential to end up there. Also, over the course of the next few weeks, while we have some of the special V18 pricing going on, we'll reach out to each of you individually and talk more about an ACT upgrade, see if that makes sense for your business. As we go along here today, look for the questions area of the GoToWebinar control panel on the right-hand side of your screen and also highlighted on this slide here. As we go along, please post any questions you have to this area, and we'll try to address as many questions as we possibly can as we go throughout the webinar today. There'll be a couple of different points that we'll stop, address those questions, and then get back into the meat of the content here. So here's our agenda for the next 90 minutes or so. We're going to do a quick overview of some of the ACT V18 features, talk about some brand new features in ACT version 18, also talk about some compatibility updates that come along with version 18. We'll also do a review of some other helpful new features released in version 16 and version 17, because we have a lot of folks on the call here with older versions of ACT, as well as some who don't yet have ACT. We'll also get into a live demo of ACT V18, talk about a number of tips and things like that for you in there as well, and also showcase a couple of our favorite apps for ACT. Then we'll do part one of our Q&A, so we'll have a lot of questions in there from you guys from the first part of the session here. We'll address as many as we can in that section. Then we're going to talk about some purchase options for ACT, special ACT V18 pricing. Then we're going to do some giveaways. We've got a couple of those favorite apps that we're going to show you inside of ACT that we're going to give away a couple of licenses of those, as well as a couple of free registrations for some of our public ACT training classes. Then we'll get into another Q&A there as well, so we can address some additional questions that have come in. And then we'll do a quick summary to go over everything we reviewed today before we wrap things up here. So ACT V18 was released on December 7th. And there's a lot of exciting new features, functionality, and compatibility updates here. ACT V18 includes a completely revamped, modern interface for the web-based product. The Windows product interface remains the same as what you've grown to know and love. For ACT eMarketing, the built-in email marketing solution for ACT, there are important updates for team functionality there. Also, for ACT users using something older than V16, ACT eMarketing is entirely new for you. So we'll show a little bit of that as we get into the live demo here and what ACT eMarketing is all about. There have been compatibility updates to provide support for other software that you use as well. So for users on Windows 10 and older versions of ACT, there were a number of key issues that have now been addressed. For anyone with Office 2016, version 18 is going to work seamlessly with Outlook, Word, and Excel. And for our web-based users, Chrome and IE11 are now fully supported. Probably the most exciting V18 feature, though, is the new ACT Web API. API is Application Programming Interface. With a modern API built into ACT, we now have the ability to connect ACT with literally hundreds of other applications. A few examples of some of the possibilities to help you get a feel for what we're talking about might be, say you use HubSpot for marketing or to drive traffic to your website. With the API, we can add new HubSpot contacts directly and automatically to your ACT database. Or if you use SurveyMonkey to get feedback from your clients and prospects, feed that data back into your ACT database. Or maybe you use QuickBooks Online and you want to add new ACT customers to QuickBooks and update contact information. Or add new QuickBooks Online estimates as ACT opportunities. If you use things like FormStack or Wufoo or any other web form products on your website that potentially have an API, we can easily add those new contacts directly to your ACT database. Or if you're using something like Zendesk to manage support tickets or customer service requests, have new support tickets in Zendesk automatically create an ACT activity for follow-up. These are just a few of the possibilities. As I mentioned, ACT will literally be able to connect to hundreds of other applications, and it'll be much more seamless and easier than ever before. And we also have a lot of folks on the call today with older versions of ACT. So some of the other highlights to recent versions, version 16, version 17, are listed here on the screen. The history list view enables you to quickly and easily see interactions and correspondence across all of your contacts. Calculated fields, which allow for simple math or date-based calculations like age or number of years as a customer, things like that. Automatic company record creation, which saves you time and ensures consistency in your ACT record keeping. The ability to reschedule multiple activities quickly and easily from the task list view. Additional Documents tab options, which allow you to link to online resources like Dropbox or Google Drive. The ability to link to a folder on your PC or a network drive. Those are new options there that you haven't had before. Free browse users. Yeah, that's right. Free browse users. For users who only need to look at ACT and don't need to update data, you no longer need to purchase a license for those people. You can also hide inactive users from the Schedule For or your Record Manager dropdowns, allowing you to maintain records of what those users have done without cluttering up your other user lists that you use on a more ongoing basis. The ACT Scheduler, which is the application responsible for your automated ACT backups and maintenance tasks, now includes email notifications so you can be assured those tasks are running properly. There's Outlook sync stability improvements, including the ability now to do one-way syncs from ACT to Outlook for your contacts and your calendars. In an ACT Mobile, you can now add photos from your mobile device to the history of the ACT contact record. You can also utilize groups and companies and more easily filter your list views. So let's actually get into the demo itself here, and let's actually take a look at the product. So for the demo today, I'm going to show you ACT version 18 in Windows, ACT version 18 on the web a little bit, and ACT version 18 mobile. I'll also show you a couple of integrations we've created using the new ACT Web API and a tool called Zapier. I'll show you a couple of our favorite apps for ACT, and those are the ones that I mentioned earlier as well that we're going to give away a couple of licenses for later on. So let's start with ACT version 18 here for Windows. One of the core features to ACT is ACT e-marketing. It's a mass email service built right into ACT. That means no exporting your ACT contacts and importing into another service. It means you have the results of your email campaigns in a usable format directly within your CRM system. This is the e-marketing view here within ACT. You have the ability to build your marketing groups, capture leads from forms, create your email templates, send email campaigns, track your results, the analytics there, and then also manage your follow-up. Additionally, with the call list feature here, you can quickly and easily see who your hot leads are that you should be following up with. This is a recent email blast I just sent to some of our internal contacts here as a sample. But what you see here is basically a list of the people who opened this email with a score, and that score indicates is based off of how many opens or clicks within the email that they had. So those that have a higher score, you would think are more interested in what it is that you had to say to them or what it is that you sent. You can also take contacts from here, select them, easily record a history, schedule a follow-up activity, or create a lookup of those records. Let's go ahead and create a lookup of these here. So you can also then go into these records and see under their history the fact that you sent them a campaign, as well as the results of that campaign as well, their opens, their clicks, things like that. And this is actually a sample of that email that I sent out yesterday. So you can see you can create, vibrant, colorful, graphical HTML email messages here within the ACT e-marketing product, and then deliver those to your customers, whether it's a newsletter, a promotion that you're running, a new product that you have, a touch-base sort of email. All those different types of things can easily be done through ACT e-marketing. Let's take a look at some of the other key things you can do in the updated versions of ACT here. Let's check out the history list. The history list shows all of your interactions and correspondence across the contacts in your database. So it can easily be filtered by dates, by types of history, by keyword, as well as by users here as well. From the history list, you can easily double-click on a history, view the full history, edit that history, schedule a follow-up from that history, things of that nature. You can also very easily get directly from the history list to a particular contact just simply by clicking that blue underlined hyperlink right under their name there. Calculated fields are also something that we find is very helpful for clients and has been introduced recently in ACT. You see here on this record I've added an age field on the personal info tab that automatically calculates the age of the contact based off of the birth date here. Under opportunities, we've also added a calculated field here that automatically calculates the commission based off of the commission percentage field that we've added here and the total field you see here on the opportunity. So calculated fields are things that can run, simple math between different numeric fields, or it can be based off of dates, like an age, or calculating maybe how long somebody has been a client of yours if you have a client since date or something like that. Go back over to contacts here. You also have some additional options, as we mentioned, on the Documents tab here. So you've always had the ability to attach files and shortcuts to files. Now you can do a shortcut to a folder where you browse to a network location or a folder on your PC, and you can attach something from there. So you've actually got a folder link there. When you double-click that, it's actually going to bring up that particular folder on your network or on your computer. You can also go in and you can do links or URLs. And so you can name the file here, give it a description, and then basically just put in a URL. And anytime you double-click on this, it's going to take you directly to that resource. And so that could be just simply something like a website, or it could be, as we start to see more and more people starting to use online file storage, something like a link to a Dropbox file or folder, or a link to Google Drive or iCloud, things like that. There's also a new feature in the recent versions of ACT that will automatically create company records for you. And automatic company creation is a really big time-saving and helpful tool that also helps ensure consistency in your database. So if you take a look at all these records here that have the blue underlying company name, if I were to click on any one of those, I get over to the companies area of the ACT database, and I can see all the contacts that are linked to that company. I can see a roll-up of notes and histories and activities and opportunities from all those different contacts that are linked here. It gives me sort of the account-level overview for this particular company. In the past, you've always had to create companies manually or use a third-party tool to automatically go through and generate. Well, recently, ACT has put in the ability to automatically create companies. And so anytime you put in a new contact or you put in a new company name on a particular contact here, like let's just put in something here on Jane's record. Anytime it finds a unique company name, it will automatically then create that company record and that link there. So there's Jane XYZ Corporation. You can see it automatically created that company here for her. And there's certain thresholds that you can set within there as well. So if you only wanted to create companies when there are multiple contacts at the same company, you can do that as well. Or you have the option also to leave that feature off if you prefer not to utilize that. From our task list view in ACT, another recent update has been the ability to reschedule multiple activities. So you can right-click or highlight multiple activities within here, then right-click and go to reschedule activity. Previously, this is something you could only do on an individual case, activity by activity basis. And so now if you go in and reschedule these, it starts with the current date here. You can push that out to whatever date you want. And this helps from, some of those activities maybe falling through the cracks that have been scheduled for previous dates and you couldn't get to them. As I mentioned earlier, under the Manage Users here, you can also hide inactive users from your Schedule For and your Record Manager dropdowns. That allows you to maintain a record of everything that those inactive users have done while hiding them from some of the key places you go to every day, some of the filtering areas you go to, like select users, or if you're scheduling on behalf of another user, you wouldn't necessarily be presented with the inactive users in those areas then. Additionally, all of your browse users now are free. So anybody who just needs to simply log in to the ACT database to look at things but doesn't actually need to update or touch anything, those are completely free licenses now, or you don't even require a license that you purchase for those users. The ACT scheduler is the utility that automatically backs up your database and maintains the database, runs a database maintenance routine on a regular basis for you. This now has the ability to set up email alerts. So we can set up an email account within here, have this deliver emails to us letting us know about the success or the failure of our ACT scheduler tasks. Then we can rest assured that our database is being backed up properly, maintained properly. And while we're still in the ACT Windows side of things, I'd like to take a minute and show you a couple of our favorite apps that we really like to recommend to clients and that we've found that clients really appreciate and enjoy working with. So I'm going to go back over to the contacts area here. I'm actually going to pull up the My Record in here for Chris Huffman. That's our demo user. And what I'm going to do is first I'm going to show you a tool called Mapper here. Mapper is from a company called DesignR1. They're a developer who creates a lot of awesome apps for ACT databases. And this is a particular tool that geocodes your database. You can see I've added a latitude and a longitude field here. And you go through and you geocode your database, putting in the latitude and longitude, and then allows us to do a number of different things. It allows us to go in and do a geo lookup or a radius type of search. So from the current contact record that I'm on, it's automatically pulling in the latitude and longitude from that record. I can say find records within X number of miles. So if I do something like 20 miles, it's going to show me all the records that are within 20 miles of the address that's on this user's record here. Or you could go to a customer maybe that you're visiting in another state where you're not as familiar with the area. Pull up a list of all the records, the other records in your database that are nearby to that customer, and you can, make a plan to drop in and visit them as well. So what this did then is it gave me this list back here. These are all the ones that are within 20 miles of the address that was on that record. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to take out anybody who's at CH. That's the demo company. We don't want to include them in what we're about to do next. Didn't mean to do lookup selected. Let's do lookup previous. There we go. We meant to do omit selected there. There we go. And so now we've got just a listing of the contacts that are not at our own company here. Now what I can do is I can actually go to Tools and I can say Map Lookup. So I can use my address as a starting address, or I can select a different contact. Same thing with the ending address. I can use my own address or select a different contact within here. Then I can either plot these on a map or actually create a route, and that's where more of the start and the end comes into play there. I'm going to create a route here, say OK. You'll see what opens in Google Maps now is an optimized route with my address as the starting point, my address as the ending point, and it takes us through that. It's a pretty powerful tool if you've got anybody who is like a traveling salesperson or goes to visit out-of-state customers or anything along those lines. I'm sure you can imagine how this would be helpful. And this is a tool that we're going to be giving away a couple of licenses for later on in the webinar here. Another tool that's also a third-party app from a developer here that we really enjoy working with is Duplicate Remover Wizard. And Duplicate Remover Wizard is from Patricia Egan Consulting. They, like DesignR1, have a lot of really awesome apps that extend the functionality of ACT. And this one in particular is used for managing duplicates. So if you've consolidated databases from different sources or consolidated different data sets into your ACT database or anything like that, deduping that database is probably a very important thing for you. And rather than having a user go through, 2 records at a time directly through ACT, or going through and just highlighting records that you want to get rid of and deleting them, this allows you to quickly enables you to find those duplicates within the system and then merge many duplicates all at once, which can be a big time saver for you. So I'm going to select our database here, and we'll actually go through and we'll run through this real quick. So it gives you the ability here to make a backup of the database. always a pretty good idea if you're going to be deleting records or merging records together. So you usually want to do that. I won't take the time on our demo today to do that, but always a good idea to do something like that. You can consolidate records in the contacts area or the companies area, so you can search for duplicates in either of those places. For our purposes today, we're just going to do contacts. Then you can choose up to 6 different fields to match duplicates based off of. When you use the ACT duplicate scan by itself, it's just 3 fields, and it also only does exact matches. So you can choose up to 6 fields here, and then you have some other options on the right-hand side here where you can exclude those that are blank. You can also use something called fuzzy matching, which sort of gets you around the issue of maybe typos or misspellings or the same company names entered a couple of different ways. It's able to find those using the fuzzy match criteria. So I'm just going to use company and contact here as our criteria. I'm going to exclude blanks, and I'm also going to use fuzzy matching so that I make sure that I can find, slight variations in the same company or maybe a typo in somebody's name, things like that. If I go next here, I've got a number of other options. I can tell it which data do we trust the most. Do I want it from the most recently modified record, the least recently modified, the earliest created, or the latest created? We can also record data that would be lost as a note in the retained record. So say you have 2 different phone numbers on two different records that are a match, and you're preferring data from the most recently modified record. Well, that other phone number would potentially be lost, but we can actually record that data into a note on the retained record so that it's not really lost. So if we say, whoops, that wasn't the right phone number, then we can always retrieve that data from a note, which is very helpful. And you can also choose what other items that are sort of sub-items of the contact also get merged, like notes and histories and documents and so on. And typically, you'd want to merge all those. The next screen here will actually tell us how many contacts it looked at, how many it excluded because they had blank fields in the contact or the company, so how many unique contacts it was able to find, and how many contacts there were with duplicates. If we go next here, then we have an opportunity to actually review those. And you can see here that Emily is spelled differently on these 2 records, but it was still able to identify that as a potential duplicate because of the similarities in that name, but using the fuzzy matching. Same thing here with my name. I spelled my last name a couple of different ways. I left an L out of the first name, but it was still able to identify those as duplicates. Also look at the company name here, where we have different variations on that same company name, but it was still able to identify those. These 2 were exact matches, so that makes sense that it was able to find those. You also have records, though, like this one here, where you have a junior and a senior. For things like that, you can easily go in and exclude those records as well. So once you've got your list the way that you want it, you can go ahead and process this and create the merged records from there. And then it'll also put that note in on the retained record with any data that could have potentially been lost. So that's a really handy tool as well, and that's another tool that we'll be giving away a couple of licenses for later on here. So now let's take a look at a couple of other things here. I'm going to pull up a web browser. We can get out of our Google Maps here. This is the ACT version 17 web interface. So it looks like what you've kind of been accustomed to seeing inside of ACT and ACT Web over the years here. Brand new interface here for ACT Web, much more modern look and feel. It also is much more compatible with different internet browsers like Google Chrome and Internet Explorer 11. Significant number of defects have been addressed relating to those browsers and recent updates to them. And with this new interface, we're able to use those browsers much more seamlessly. Plus, you get the added benefit of the new modern interface here within ACT Web. Also part of Web is the mobile interface for your smartphones and your tablets, and I'm actually going to bring up just another browser here that I've sort of resized so it would look like a phone here for you. It's not easy to show you an iPhone or an iPad or an Android device through a GoToWebinar like this, but you can kind of see and envision how this is similar to the size and shape of your phone, and this is the ACT mobile product that you see here. You can now go into contacts and into the history. Oh, because I need to log back in there. Hang on just a second. My connection timed out from earlier. Sorry for the delay. Okay, let's go into contacts then. And if we go into a contact record, you can go in and record history. Record history by attaching a photo directly from the camera on your mobile device. So that can be a handy feature while you're out on the go, whether it's taking a picture of a machine that you've sold to somebody, or a part that might be broken or something like that, or a piece of real estate, or a vehicle for an insurance claim. All kinds of different things. Take a photo of the contact themselves and put that in there for you, so you remember what they look like. There's a lot of applications for being able to utilize that from your smartphones or your tablets. You also now have access to groups and companies within Act Mobile here, so you can easily get into the groups module, the companies module, and view and manage things within there. There's also much easier ways now of filtering things like the task list, the opportunity list, things like that. There's a number of filters now up at the top here that you can go in and filter by dates, by types, by priorities, a lot of the things that you're accustomed to seeing directly within the Act software that you use every day on your computer. There's been a number of improvements to mobile. All right. Now I'd like to actually get in and start showing you a little bit about the Act v18 API. This is something that's got us really excited. So we built a couple of integrations for the purposes of the webinar today. We used the Act API along with a tool called Zapier to create these, and a couple of different things that we've done here. The first is we created an integration with Zapier that basically emails the contact details of a new contact that's added to ACT to somebody in your organization. So I'm actually going to go in here. I'm going to create a brand new contact within here, and then within a few minutes we'll actually have an email showing us some of the contact information here. So let's put in Joanna Smith at ABC Company. Just put in a little bit more detail here. I want to make sure I put in a phone and an ID status. She's going to be a prospect. All right, let's go ahead and save that record. Okay, so we've got Joanna in here, and like I said, within a few minutes or so, we should get an email containing all of Joanna's details here. That'll come into my inbox over here. This is actually another email that'll look similar that I did earlier today as a test, just to make sure everything was working properly before the demo. We'll make sure that other email comes in though here in just a few minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to show you another item that we created using the API here. This is Wufoo. This is a Wufoo form. It's a fairly basic form, but you can create some much more significantly complex forms using Wufoo or other products like FormStack, and there's a ton of them out there on the market right now. And typically you'd take a form like this and you'd embed that into your website, whether it's a contact us form or an inquiry for services, or having somebody sign up for an event and giving you their credit card information, all of that. That can all be done through forms like Wufoo. And like I said, you typically would embed something like this on your website. This is one of the really cool things that you can do now with the ACT API, is that when you go in and you create a new contact here, so let's put in Mr. Doe and MD at abc.com. We're just making stuff up here. And he's at ABC Company, and we'll just say, hey, great demo so far. We'll go ahead and submit this. Then almost instantaneously, that's actually going into our ACT database over here. So there's Mr. Doe right there at ABC Company. That less than 10 seconds after we submitted that form is now in our ACT database. So hopefully you're starting to see some of the possibilities with the API that's being introduced through Act v18. These types of integrations that we can create through HubSpot and Act, and FormStack and Wufoo and Act, and QuickBooks Online and Act, and any of these other online applications that have APIs are really a game changer here. It's got us really excited for this huge universe of ideas of all these different things that you can do now. And we hope you see a lot of value in it as well. Okay, I'm going to jump back into our presentation over here. Let me get that going again. Hang on just a moment. that. There we go. Okay, so I'd like to take a few minutes here and just address any questions up to this point about features, functionality, stuff like that. We'll go through those, and then we'll get into some of the options for purchasing Act V18, some of the different subscription types you have there, and then we'll also do our giveaways and some additional questions later on in the webinar as well. So just kind of starting at the top of the list here that we've got, is it possible to customize the scheduling calendar for intervals shorter than 30 minutes? Yes, it absolutely is. And actually, you know what, let me get back out of the presentation. Let me pull ACT back up here. So you have a couple of different options there. Under Tools and Preferences, under Calendar and Activities, there's a Calendar Preferences here. And so you can set your increments right here for what you want that to be. So you can go 5, 10, 15, 30. You have different options for the daily calendar and the work week calendar. You can also set defaults for the activities that you're scheduling. So if you want most of your calls to be a duration of something like 10 minutes and you want your to-dos to be a duration of something like 30 minutes or something like that, you can also go in and manage those activity type settings also in the preferences under calendar and activities, but under the activity preferences rather than the calendar preferences. So you've got a number of different options there. How do you tell which version you have? What should it say to make sure we have these new features? The easiest way to tell what version you have is to go to the Help menu and then About Act. And it's going to tell you right here what you have installed. So there's a question about potential API connections as well for something like a realtor tool like Zillow. Yeah, absolutely. Zillow has an API, and you know, as we get into doing more with the API, we could certainly explore that type of a connection and what's available there. I don't know the specifics of what Zillow has available on their end to us, but I do know that they do have an API. So it'd just be a matter of looking at what capabilities they provide on their end and how we can mesh those with some of the capabilities provided through the ACT API to create an integration. There's a question about ACT being fully compatible with Firefox and Safari. ACT is certified only on an older version of Firefox, and I apologize, I don't know the build number off the top of my head, and is not necessarily fully supported for Safari through the full ACT web client, but is supported, does support Safari as a mobile browser on iPhones and iPads. A question about compatibility with Windows 10. Yes, ACT is absolutely compatible with Windows 10, specifically with version 18 here. It is mostly compatible as well in the latest service pack and hotfix for version 17 as well. Does it do auto-completion on company name in the creation process so that you don't need to create XYZ Corp under one user and XYZ Corporation under another? No, it doesn't auto-complete there, but you do have some options available to you. A couple of different things you could do. So I'm going to create a brand new contact here. I could actually click from the list here and go in and select an existing company in here. So I just created a new contact. Click the little dot button here, and I can easily grab a company that's already in the system here if I want to. So you can do something like that. Another option, this is something that's sort of a helpful tip or trick to save you some time and hassle, is rather than creating brand new contacts for companies that are already in here, take an existing contact like this particular company here, Ace Pet Store Franchise. If I want to add a new contact at this company, rather than just doing new and having an entirely blank new record, click on the duplicate contact here. When you duplicate data from primary fields, it's going to automatically put in things like the company, the ID status, the address information, the website, the phone numbers. It's automatically going to put those things in for you. So it's just a matter of putting in the unique contact name, their title, things that are unique to that individual. This copies all the information from the main company. So that's a best practice that we often teach our users when creating new records that are already at existing companies. So there's another question here. How do you keep the time for an activity when rescheduling multiple activities within the task list? Unfortunately, you can't do that because it's not going to assume automatically that those times that were on the old activities are still available on the new date that you're rescheduling all of them to. So it actually puts them in as timeless. So you'd have to go in if you wanted to maintain the time and either reschedule them individually, or once you get them all to the new date, go back in and then assign a time to them. Does dupe matching merge the information in the two accounts, then delete one of them? Yes, that's exactly what it does. So it combines the information, and then it deletes the whatever record was the one we wanted to get rid of, whether it's the least recently modified or the least recently created or whatever that is. So all the notes, the histories, things like that are going to be combined into one, along with the field data as well, and then it's going to delete the additional record. Mobile is not a separate license. This is another question here. Is mobile a separate license? Mobile is not a separate license as long as you have the Act Premium product. It's built into the Act Premium product, so it's not available in the Act Pro product, but it is there and available for all of the Act Premium users. So if you place a call from the mobile platform, will it log the call in the ACT database? Where would that call be located for future reference? Yeah, when you place a call from mobile, and I can't show you this because I don't actually have a phone I can show you, but it doesn't do it quite right through a web browser on the computer. But yeah, when you go to dial a phone number, it'll actually then automatically take you to a history screen, a record history of a call completed. And so after you hang up that call, you've then got on your screen a record history window for a call being completed. So that makes it very seamless and easy to get the details of that phone call then into the ACT record, and that would show up under the history tab of that contact record. Apologize, I've just got to read through a little bit longer question here. So somebody's on version 2012 with Premium and Web, using it on a server, not accessed via the web. They're consolidating two databases and want to do all this with the latest version. Back in 2012, we installed web version so we could migrate to the web. I want to roll out the upgrade and then change to the web. Are there best practice steps to doing this? There's a number of different things going on in that question. Not sure who asked that, but we should probably look at that on a case-by-case basis from the standpoint of upgrading from a particular version to consolidating the databases and rolling out web to your users. That's probably a bit too technical for a call like this, but certainly something that we can absolutely help you with. So we'll note who asked that question, and we can get back to you on that. Web version is running from localhost. Can I run my own premium or self-cloud hosted copy? Yes, I was running the premium web from localhost on here just to ensure we didn't have any sort of internet connectivity issues with the server while we we're going through a demo. Act Premium absolutely lets you host your own Act Premium instance, Act Premium web instance. You can absolutely do that on your own systems there. So when we look at some of the purchase options and the different types of licenses that are available, you'll see where that's where you have an opportunity to do that yourself. Is it possible to group companies similar to how contacts can be grouped? You can create queries for companies, so you can look up and search, and some of those can be advanced queries, but you can't manually group contact or companies together like you can contacts, unfortunately. Would you mind explaining the benefits of setting up a company group versus doing lookup by company to get the list of contacts at that company? Well, the best thing about companies is the fact that it rolls up. Let me go to somebody who's got multiples in here. I can go up here. The best thing about the company records, I think, is that it rolls up all of the notes, all of the histories, all the activities, and all the opportunities into one place here. So if you created just simply a lookup of the contacts that were at a particular company and you wanted to see what was going on with them, you'd have to basically click through each individual record, looking at all those tabs down at the bottom of the screen here. And unfortunately, that's it could be a time-consuming thing to do. You still have that capability even when you have company records, but company records makes it nice and easy because it rolls up all the notes, the histories, the activities, the opportunities, all into one place here. You can also have fields that are linked between companies and contacts, so if you update something at the company level, it can push down that change to the contacts. So maybe that's something like your ID status field. You classify them as a customer, you do that at the company level, you want that to push down to all the contacts that are linked there. Okay, we're going to spend just a few more minutes on questions here. And just, Maggie, you're collecting the questions. Why don't you just hold off on any additional questions at this point and feeding those in, and save those for the second round of questions here that we're going through. So will API apps work through the Windows version? You're going to need a web-based connection for your ACT database. So you do have to have ACT web or a web-connected server with the ACT Web API on there. Can the WUFU contacts include a scheduled action, such as a follow-up phone call? Yeah, with the API does support activities and things like that, so absolutely, you could have something like that scheduled within there. If you import a new contact via a form that already exists, what happens? We have to create the integration using some strategies that keep that in mind, where we're looking for duplicates and things like that. So when you create an integration through an API, you can specify different things like that, how you want it to look for duplicates and things like that, and exactly what you want it to do if it finds one. Will v18 allow us to drag and drop from a browser to ACT? Apologize, I'm not sure what exactly that means. I'm not sure what would be dragging and dropping from a browser into ACT. Recording include the slides? Yes, we're going to send out the slides, absolutely. Is Handheld Contact the mobile version you were showing? No, Handheld Contact is a separate app. The mobile version that I was showing is a web-based mobile option for iPhones, iPads, and Android devices, where you're actually just hitting a website from that device. You're actually working live off of the main database. Handheld Contact is actually a separate app that would be installed locally and would have data contained within it directly on the mobile device itself. So if you're in scenarios where you don't have a great cell phone connection, something like a Handheld Contact could be good because it does store some of the data locally there, whereas ACT Mobile requires an internet connection in order to access it. But you do have the advantage of being live on the database. Once you put something in, it's immediately there for others to see, and you're seeing live every other changes that other people are making. Are the free browse users available on the local application-based version of ACT v18? Yes, they are. Can ACT integrate with contact database subscriptions such as Inside View or Hoovers? As long as they have an API, yes, absolutely. I've set up my first page with information that I want to use. Will the new system take these out? No. Your screens and your layouts that you have within an ACT database, like what we're looking at here, absolutely will upgrade from version to version. Is there a VoIP dialer add-on for ACT? There most definitely is. There's actually a few different options, and the API then introduces a whole slew of additional options that we can do there. So depending on what phone service you have today or what type of phone service you might be looking for, there's a variety of different options that are out there. Was the compatibility resolved after the recent iOS update for iPhone users? Mobile web no longer works. If you're talking about dialing from mobile, that is something that has been addressed in the latest service packs and hotfixes for ACT version 17, and then also has been addressed in version 18 as well. Can ACT Mobile sync with the Outlook client? Not through mobile, but we do have the ability to sync either the web-based version of ACT through a plugin that we would install for Outlook or through the Windows application of ACT, again, through a plugin that's installed in Outlook to be able to do those things. But also the API opens up the doors to integrating with something like Office 365 and through the web API and things like that too. So it's not exactly the mobile that's syncing with the Outlook client, but there's certainly options to get data into Outlook for you. Will WUFU also provide an email to a staff member so they can respond accordingly? Yeah, absolutely. You'll get an email showing that somebody submitted that form, or there's some options within there to do that. Will ACT allow syncing of the ACT calendar to Outlook instead of having to toggle back and forth? Yes, it does. Yep, and there's one-way or two-way options. There's a variety of things you can configure within there. And is the API available as a Java interface to input records into ACT from a custom-built app? I'm going to say no, but we could probably still get those records in from those custom-built apps. We just have to look at exactly what you have there and see what would need to be done to do that. Somebody's got a question about Outlook integration, sending an email from Outlook. Can it save to the company or contact in ACT? Yes, absolutely. In fact, that's a core feature that's within the ACT product today. If you go in, like, I can even do this right now on screen. Pull up Outlook, create a new email message. Let me just find somebody who's got an email address out of these records here. Just grab this one right here and go into a new email. Call this test, put in something there, and then refresh my history tab. There's that email right there. So there's actually a plugin in Outlook that looks at that email address that I was sending to and tries to record it back to the ACT database. And so, yeah, you're absolutely able to do that. Is the auto create company feature when adding a new contact enabled by default? No, it's not. It's something you have to turn on. What is the name of the ACT app for Apple? There really is no app currently other than the handheld contact, which was mentioned previously, which is a separate third-party tool. Just using ACT Mobile goes through an internet browser, say through Safari or Chrome on the iPhone or something like that. Can we globally change the format of the phone fields? There are some fixes that you can run to apply a mask to some of the phone formatting. You can also address some of that through an import or an export and import of the data. So depending on what exactly you need to do with it, there's certainly some options available. And can the calendar be updated automatically from the contacts page? Not sure what that means, but if you're asking, can you schedule something from a contact and have it show up on the calendar? Absolutely. You can go to a contact, schedule a call, a meeting to do something like that. That's going to go direct into your calendar on the date that it's scheduled. All right. There were some questions that were separate for e-marketing, and I just wanted to go back and address those real quick as sort of a separate item here. Does ACT e-marketing act as a replacement for Swiftpage? Yeah, so Swiftpage actually bought ACT a couple of years ago. Prior to Swiftpage owning ACT, they were the leading integration for email marketing. And now that they own ACT, the ACT e-marketing is a more seamless integration between ACT and the mass email service. It is a new service, though. It is not the old Swiftpage that's been upgraded or something like that. It's actually a different service. You can still utilize Swiftpage with current versions of ACT, but eventually I would see ACT e-marketing serving as a replacement for Swiftpage. Somebody asked, are all of these features built into e-marketing? It's kind of a general question. Everything I showed within the e-marketing area is part of the e-marketing. So yeah, I hope that answers the question, but otherwise I'm not really sure what to say about that. Is there an additional cost for e-marketing, or is that stock in v18? There is a base level account that is entirely free, where you can send to 500 unique contacts on a monthly basis, and that's built right into it. You don't pay anything extra for that. There are additional levels of accounts that allow you to send to additional contacts, and also have additional features such as more of a team type of option, things like that, that are additional cost. Is the e-marketing open for all users, or can it be filtered for selected users? So yeah, you can absolutely limit which users can utilize e-marketing. It's part of the user profiles under manage users. That's actually something that's brand new in version 18 here as well, is the capability to control that here under the manage users section. So you go into a user, that's now an optional permission here for e-marketing administration. Okay, so we spent about 15, almost 20 minutes on some questions there. I do want to get back into the meat of the presentation. There will be more time for questions later on here, so I know some other questions have already been asked up to this point. We'll try to cover absolutely as much as we can in the next Q&A portion as well, and then we even might be able to stick around for a few extra minutes here beyond the scheduled hour and a half if there are some additional questions that we need to address. So, but I want to make sure that we're respectful of everybody's time here and continue on with some additional things that we want to get through here. All right, so let me get the presentation back going here and swap that. There we go. Okay, so again, keep posting questions in there. We'll try to address as many as we can. So continue to post there in the chat. All right, so let's talk about purchase options for ACT version 7 or version 18 here. ACT rolled out a new subscription-based pricing model on June 1 of last year. Anybody that's on an active subscription is entitled to updates like service packs, hot fixes, as well as version upgrades. You're also entitled to support. So you have unlimited access to ACT's help desk teams for basic troubleshooting, error messages, break fix type of support. They're there to help you Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You also get access to extras like ACT Marketing, Anytime Learning Library, which is a great resource for like refresher training, stuff like that. And with subscription, there are really 3 core plans that we focus on here at AspenTech. You have an ACT Premium annual subscription. That's the first one we'll talk about here. You would host your ACT database yourself. You get access to the Windows, web, and mobile clients. You get all the updates. You get your free e-marketing accounts. You get the unlimited basic technical support and break fix help. You get the Anytime Learning videos. This plan does, though, require that you renew each year in order to continue using your ACT software. The next plan is a perpetual plan. In year 1 of a perpetual plan, you have the exact same benefits as the annual plan when it comes to updates and support and things like that. The big difference is that in year 2, you don't need to renew your subscription in order to continue using the software. That's the perpetual component here. That does mean, though, that in year 2, you're no longer entitled to those updates and technical support that you're paying for on an annual plan. However, if you decided you wanted to keep the perpetual option to be able to walk away at any point with your ACT software and continue to use it without having to continue to pay for the subscription, you do also have the option, though, of maintaining an annual renewal on that to ensure that you continue to get updates and support in the short term, and maybe you decide a few years down the road that you don't want to renew that any longer. You have that option with the perpetual plan. There's also ACT Premium Cloud. And so the cloud annual subscription, this is identical to the annual, except ACT actually is hosting your database. So it means your database is stored in a secure data center, automatically backed up, maintained, upgraded when upgrades are available, things like that. This also allows you to free yourself from the need to have a server in-house or worry about things like VPN connections or for ACT synchronization or port forwarding on your firewall for ACT Web and ACT Mobile access, and those types of IT-related items that come with hosting a database like this internally. So this is a great option if you don't have a server or you're looking to get away from having a server in-house, or you just don't want to deal with those types of issues. There are a couple of additional benefits you get by being on a subscription. Over time, software vendors will discontinue older versions of their products. We call this entering obsolescence or the sunset of the product. And you can avoid that entirely by being on a subscription. The obsolescence or sunset of a product will typically signal the end of the useful life of the product. The support from the software vendor will no longer be available, and new licenses will no longer be available to purchase. As you add additional teams, things like that. AspenTech will continue to support our clients for as long as we possibly can, but your product may not work with newer versions of Windows, Microsoft Office, newer internet browsers, smartphones, tablets, things like that. So just in the last couple of years, we've seen Microsoft release things like Windows 8, Windows 10, Server 2012, Office 2013, Office 2016, a new Edge internet browser. All of those different types of things have come out just in the span of about 3 years for Microsoft. And people like Google are constantly updating Google Chrome and things like that. So that compatibility issue can be a big one as well. And the newest, latest, and greatest versions, ACT is always going to try to make those compatible with all those other major products that are on the market just as quickly as they can. And so ensuring you're on a current version of the software will allow you to take advantage of some of those other new products as well, and also ensure that your ACT is still integrated and maintained there. Additionally, once a product sunset, if there's an issue AspenTech can't resolve, we can't really turn to ACT for additional assistance for a repair of a damaged database, and so it kind of ties our hands a little bit. Support for ACT version 16 ends on November 30th of this year, and support for version 17 ends on November 30th of next year. There's also, for those same v16 and v17 users right now, people who own ACT v16 or own ACT v17, there's loyalty discounts for you because you're on current ACT products. So as you transition into subscription, ACT is basically giving you a thank you for owning a more recent version of the software, and giving you a loyalty discount as you look at some of the subscription plans, and we'll see more about that here in a couple slides. Now, those loyalty discounts, though, end for ACT v16 and ACT v17 customers on September 30th of this year. So as a big thank you from both Swiftpage as well as AspenTech for attending our webinar today, we've got special ACT version 18 pricing, and it's really the best pricing we're able to offer all year long on the ACT products. We'll start with the v16 and v17 users. These are the ones that qualify for loyalty discounts. All the prices you see here are for clients with 1 to 4 licenses. Additional volume discounts are available for 5 or more licenses, and we can work with each one of you to quote the proper price level there for you. Again, these are the best prices we're going to be able to offer on ACT this year, so if you're considering upgrading, this is probably the time to really seriously think more about it. Additionally, you can secure the pricing by purchasing licenses now, and we can always wait until you're ready to actually implement the software to install your upgrade. So don't worry about actually committing to doing the upgrade installation, say, in the next 5 weeks here. For annual subscriptions, the price for our v16, v17 users right now is $163. After our special pricing period ends on February 29th, that price jumps to $181. And after you're no longer eligible for the loyalty discount come October 1st of this year, it goes up to $238. So you can see there's a lot of savings there. For clients considering a perpetual license, right now your price is $325. After our special pricing period ends on February 29th, that goes to $361. And after you're no longer eligible for the loyalty discount, it goes up to $475. And for anyone considering an annual cloud plan, our everyday price on that is $399. That's annual per user. Here's another way of looking at the savings, just a different way, including the per license savings relative to the dates we just talked about. As a reminder, this pricing is just for our current ACT v16 and ACT v17 clients that qualify for the loyalty discounts here. Another big thing here as well is that the annual clients, people who decide that they're going to go with an annual subscription, you're going to be grandfathered into yearly savings. By renewing while you're still eligible for loyalty pricing, this 163 or this 181, that's a huge difference from 238. When you spread that across all of your users, and then you also consider that that's an annual thing moving forward here. And so we can't guarantee that we can get you at 163 every single year, because that's a special roadshow preview webinar thing that we're doing right now. But the difference between that 181 and that 238, that's a pretty significant difference as well. I mean, $57 right there annually per user that you save just by deciding that you're going to upgrade to ACT v18 and get onto an annual plan before October 1st. So there's huge impacts of that for the long term here as well. This next screen here is for any of our users on older versions of ACT, anything before version 16, so that would be 2013, 2012, 2011, going back all the way to 2005, and then even before that you had things like ACT 6 or 2004, you had ACT 5, which is known as 2000, things like that. So anybody before version 16, this is what you're currently looking at, as well as anybody who's new to the ACT portfolio. This is the new license pricing here. So again, all of these are for clients with 1 to 4 licenses, and as I mentioned before, there's additional volume discounts available for 5 or more. We'll work with each one of you individually to work out the best possible price we can get you on these things. For annual subscription, your price right now is $214. After our special pricing period ends on February 29th, that jumps to $238. For perpetual licenses, it's $428 right now, and after that promo period ends, it jumps to $475. And again, for anyone considering a cloud annual plan there, our everyday price on that is $399. So here's just another way of looking at the same pricing for the users on older versions of ACT as well as new users. Sort of gives you that breakdown again where you can see the savings right here to do it before February 29th or on or before February 29th versus 3/1 or after this pricing up here. I'm sure there's going to be questions on that. Please go ahead and post those to the questions area, and we'll try to get to as many of the pricing questions as we possibly can in the next question segment that we have upcoming. So before we get to that, though, we do have a few giveaways for our attendees today. As a big thank you for attending our webinar. We want to make sure we get these things to you. And so we basically did a random drawing using a service called randompicker.com. We took all the registrant names from just prior to starting the webinar today and imported those into their service. We're giving away 2 copies of Design R1's Mapper, which you saw during the demo that we did. Really helpful tool for geocoding your database, finding those radiuses, as well as creating routes between contacts. 2 copies of Egan Consulting's Duplicate Wizard application. Again, you saw that during the demo. Huge helpful tool for being able to combine multiple records within your database where you have duplicates. Also doing 2 public power user training. That's a class that we do actually here in our Plymouth, Michigan Training Center. If you're not local and you're one of the winners of that, we'd be happy to swap that out for one of our online public classes that we do. And those are actually our public customization and administration training. We do those through GoToMeeting, and we're giving 2 of those away as well. So we'll send an email out to everybody in the next couple of days here that is a winner, and get you information on what you need to do to install your add-on or to register for one of our training classes, whatever is relevant for whatever it was that you want. So these are our winners here. So congratulations. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to go ahead there. Congratulations to our winners. We'll get an email out to you in the next couple of days with instructions on how to redeem your prize. So you can see on the left-hand side here what was won. You can see in the middle here who won. And we'll get you more details on these coming up in the next couple of days here. So with that, I want to jump into more Q&A here. We've got about 25 minutes left on the call here. So I'm going to take some time to address some additional questions, and then we'll do a little summary after that, and then we'll be at 12 o'clock here. So give me just a moment. I'm going to sort of get back into the questions here and start addressing those. Okay, so if using Mapper, how do you get the geocode info in there? Does Mapper do that for you? Yes, there is a way of having it automatically do that on new records that you're putting into the system, or you can do a sort of a mass update for your existing records that are already in there. What is the reasoning behind using companies versus contacts? Companies would be more like your account level overview. Contacts then are the individual people that you have there. ACT tends to be a little bit more of a contact-centric sort of system. In sales, you might be trying to get an account, but you really need to know the people there. You need to build the relationships with the people there. And so ACT tends to be a contact-centric database. It still gives you the account level functionality so you can look at that account level overview, but then you have the individual people that are in there as well. Is there a way to automate replies for events? For instance, when someone fills out a form and a new contact is created, we'd like a welcome note to go out. Thanks for your note, Mr. Doe. We're glad to know you. Yeah, absolutely. That could actually be part of the form service, or you could potentially even include something like through the API send email thing that I showed as well that could potentially do something like that as well. Is version 18 compatible with Office 365? So Office 365 is a subscription, and you can choose whether or not to access those apps in the cloud, like through Outlook Web Access and things like that, or access them through a local install. ACT version 18 is compatible from all the way up to Office 2016 as far as the installed products go. So if that's what you have installed as part of your Office 365 subscription, then yes, absolutely. As far as the web-based access to your Office 365 subscription, the new API opens up the door to that. In particular, there's an Office plugin that actually acts as publishing themselves for Microsoft Outlook online that should be available probably within the next month or so here. And so, yeah, the API can do that with the online stuff as well. One more time, can you tell us what browsers are compatible for the mobile version of Act v18 Preview? So if you're using the mobile version, you're typically using that from a mobile device. And, you know, most commonly, you know, your iPhone and iPad users are going to be using Safari. Your Android users are going to be using Chrome. I realize there's other browsers you can download, like you can download Chrome onto an iPhone or an iPad. You can also use a browser like Dolphin, or there's a number of other ones out there. The official support, I believe, is Safari on iPhone and iPad and Chrome on an Android. But we've seen a number of other browsers also work with Act Mobile as well. Question about e-marketing campaigns being sent to secondary contacts. Unfortunately not. There's a lot of limitations with secondary contacts. That's just one of many. Secondary contacts, you can't schedule activities with them, record histories to them, send emails to them like this. When you do a lookup, say by last name or company name, it doesn't by default include secondary contacts. So there's a lot of limitations there. And we typically try to stay away from utilizing those as much as possible. Once you create a contact, will it add the contact automatically to the company as long as the company is created? Yeah, it absolutely will. So if it's got the same company name, or if you do something like duplicating the contact that I showed, then most definitely. Details on interface with Outlook and vCards. So if you receive a vCard inside of Outlook and you add it to your Outlook contacts and you have Act set up to sync with Outlook, that's an option and something you can do there. You can also send vCards out of Act as well. If I go, there's a send vCard option. If I were actually on a contact record, it would be lit up for me there. But there's a send vCard option, so you could actually send a vCard from an Act contact to someone as well. So there is some compatibility there. How does Act 18 handle companies that have multiple locations? It doesn't really handle it any differently than earlier versions. When you have companies with multiple locations, your best bet is to make sure that the company name is unique to that location if you want to have separate company records for that. It's probably more important when you do have automatic company creation set up to ensure that you're getting those companies created properly, but it's still kind of the same rules still apply in that it's all based off of the company name itself. So if you're working with a franchise, say like a Home Depot or something like that, and you have different stores that you look at as different accounts, then maybe you want to have Home Depot number 213 and Home Depot number 456, things like that, directly within the company name itself to help distinguish between those different locations. You can also then, within the company's area, go in and create divisions underneath companies. So you can do sort of a subgrouping of the companies. You can see here we got CH Holding, and then you've got a couple of companies underneath there, and then you've got additional divisions that are under CH Tech 1. So you can organize it in this fashion as well to help maybe reduce some of the duplication or clutter that you would otherwise see inside of a list like this for multiple companies or multiple locations. Is Act Mobile free for view-only users? Yeah, a browse user can log into Act Mobile. Anything new in the dashboard? No, not at this time. If you are looking for dashboard capabilities, there are some third-party products that can really extend the capabilities of the dashboards. One in particular I have installed on here called Topline Dash. I don't really want to take the time right on this call to get it, but if you're looking for some specific capabilities, that is a tool that significantly extends some of the dashboard capabilities. When receiving a mobile call, will Act Mobile show the caller? No, unfortunately, there's not a hook into the caller ID on that right now. But there are ways of getting the contacts either via Outlook or Google into your main contacts address book on the phone. And then once they're there, then it will read from those on the caller ID. Any way to automatically populate the lat longitude from the address, or must you look it up and enter each? Oh no, that's something that'll happen automatically, where you can it'll do that automatically on new records that you put in, or you can do that for an entire lookup of records, like when you first implement the tool, you just have it run across your entire database. how do you get your contact form to look like that with logo and with whatnot? That's part of the design layouts area. So if you have a company logo that you want to put in here, you can go into tools and design layouts. Depending on whether you want to update the contact or group or company or opportunity layouts, you have some options here. And that is just a picture. Sorry, under drawing, an image right here. So you just put it under the drawing toolbox. You go in, you put that image wherever you want in here. And you can browse to a file that you want to put in there. It's nice to be able to brand the database specifically for your organization like that. For calls coming from a computer, Skype calling, would it still record that a call has been made? Let's see. You could integrate with different services like that using the API, and then potentially, yeah, create histories and things like that automatically from there. Absolutely. And there's already some other VoIP integrations that are out there today that do similar things to that. The API will extend those capabilities greatly across to other platforms. Will Act Cloud Premium v17 automatically get the update to v18? Yeah, if you're on premium, if you're on a cloud subscription right now, so like you're on, say, cloud annual, or even if you bought a cloud monthly direct from ACT, yeah, you will get updated automatically to v18. My guess would probably be in the next couple of weeks that something like that would happen. What do we recommend for users on Apple laptops? You could use the web-based product of ACT. That's one option. Using something like Chrome on there as a browser, and then access the web-based version of the ACT software. Or you can install something like VMware or Parallels, something like that. And when you have that on there, then that creates a virtual Windows environment where you can actually install a Windows product like ACT on there. I'm going to just take a second here. I want to look through some of the questions. I want to see if there's some questions relating to pricing. We're talking about a lot of features, functionality, stuff like that. Not that I don't want to get to those, but I just want to make sure that if for anybody who's got another commitment or anything like that at noon here, if they had questions about pricing or anything like that that we just went over here, that we find a little bit of time to cover those. So give me just a moment here and let me just take a peek through these. Okay, doesn't look like there's much in the way of pricing questions here. Meg, as you're pulling these together, if you see any pricing questions coming through, if you could maybe hold off on some of the additional feature questions that are coming in, and then give me those pricing questions. Like I said, I just want to make sure we address anything like that before the end of the call here in the next 15 minutes. But no, we'll jump into some of the other questions here then. So how to create automated drip campaigns. Once emails are created, how do we automate multiple emails to send out over time after a new contact was created or status change? Right now, the ACT eMarketing does not have drip campaigns built into it. The older style Swiftpage eMarketing does. That should be a functionality that ACT is working on at the moment, and hopefully we'll see that soon within ACT eMarketing. If drip campaigns are important to you and you have an ACT database and that you want to stick with ACT, then the new API makes it very easy to integrate with other services as well that potentially could give you those capabilities too. Can we set up specific rights to specific users, like deleting contacts versus the group selection of manager, admin, things like that? You can to a degree. Your standard users can very much be customized like that. So if I pull up a standard user here, there is all sorts of customizable permissions within here, like their ability to export or their ability to delete. We talked about some of the e-marketing things earlier, all kinds of different things within here. So yeah, you have some options, absolutely there. Why is CHTech1 showing on every page of ACT? Oh, that's just the demo company. So CHTech1 is the ACT demo database. They're sort of the owner of the database. It's their company who's using it. And so that's just sort of branding it to them. And you saw through the design layouts how you can add your own company logo in there as well. Will v18 allow you to drag and drop from Outlook? I want to drag and drop attachments to the contact rather than manually adding it via the Documents tab. I don't think it will, but let's just try something here. If we take a file that we have, oh, sorry, I'll make this a little bit bigger. Take a file that I have here. We can, absolutely. Look at that. So yeah, take a document, drag that, drop that into the attachments here, or the Documents tab here, and yeah, it attaches that for sure. Very cool. Maybe part of the document tab improvements, maybe a hidden feature I wasn't aware of. So yes, what is API? Application Programming Interface. It's basically for web-based applications to be able to sort of communicate with one another, sort of speak the same language, make integrations easier between applications that are on the web. And so the new version 18 has the API and opens the door to a lot of possibilities and integrations with other products. I'm currently using Office 2007. Do I need to upgrade to use ACT version 18? No, you don't. If I highlight text from a browser page, can that selected info be dragged into ACT fields or history versus cut and paste? Not exactly, no, but there are some third-party tools out there that allow you to, say, highlight contact information and then click a button and have it then process that in as a contact inside the ACT database. Does the Outlook plugin pull past emails into ACT from sent items when installed? It does not. It only looks at emails as you're sending them, but you can go in and you can manually attach from the sent items if you'd like to. If you have an attachment in that email from Outlook, will it show in ACT as well? It depends on how you have your ACT set up to record history for email messages. So if I go in to do a new message here, there's actually an option under the add-ins ribbon to be able to say, yes, please include the attachments. And through the preferences in ACT, you can also set that as the default. That's on the Email tab and Email System Setup. Okay, it looks like we're getting a couple questions on pricing. So I want to go back, circle to those, and I'll come back to these other questions here in a moment. I want to buy the perpetual, now version 17, but when the year of service ends and I have v18, will I get to keep that one? Yes. After that initial year, if you decide that you do not want to renew into an annual plan, you walk away with whatever the latest and greatest version is at that time of expiration of your contract. Did I say you'll be getting v18 for free? I just bought v17 in the fall. It depends on who you are and what you did when you bought v17 in the fall. So if you're coming in on subscription and you bought either an annual plan or even the perpetual plan or even premium cloud, any of those subscription options we talked about, if they were just purchased back in the fall, then absolutely. So you know, with the annual plan, that's obviously good for a year, and then you renew it at the end. With the perpetual, you get that initial year of updates, and then with cloud, it's always constantly updating. So, yeah, I would think that as long as you're on a premium subscription, yeah, you would. Okay, just looks like there's a handful of other questions here. We'll get into these, but certainly if you guys have more questions, keep them coming in. Anything new with Smart Tasks? No, not at this time. And to be honest, we found that Smart Tasks were a little bit unreliable, and it's not something we typically recommend to a lot of our clients that they try to utilize. I know ACT is working on a new sort of Smart Tasks engine, and they're kind of rethinking how they do that to hopefully provide some more stability there, and then probably build out some additional features along those lines. We're advised not to immediately update to ACT v18 to avoid initial glitches. Have these glitches been addressed or fixed? There were some initial bugs with v18. A couple that we're aware of do still exist out there. ACT is working very diligently to update and address those things, but depending on who you are specifically and what you do with ACT, some of those things may be more or less relevant for you. And so, you know, over the course of the next few weeks here, as we start to talk to more and more of you about v18 and upgrading to it, if there are specific things that we're aware of that are occurring with v18 that we know might impact you, then we might suggest still holding off a little bit, maybe until we get the first service pack or until they release another hot fix in the interim to address something that might affect you. But other clients, we have been updating to v18 so far, and we've got some good results from doing that. Will the e-marketing costs for higher level subscriptions change with v18? No, they won't. They're still going to be the same. Is there help available to assist in setting up acts to best fit our company's needs? Oh, most definitely. That's actually what we do an awful lot of. We talk to clients about their needs. We help to analyze those needs, help to customize an act database for them, potentially help them with installing and configuring it, migrating data from other systems, and then ultimately training them on how to use it and make sure that everything's working very well for them. So that's one of the key things that we do as part of our business here at AspenTech. My version is Pro 2011. If I purchase v17, do you install, and is there training for v17? We do absolutely install. It's not something that's necessarily just included with a license purchase, but we can certainly talk to you about your scenario, how many computers, things like that, and work out a price quote for the installation services. And we can also do training both on current versions of ACT as well as older versions of ACT if that's what you need. I still have some issues with ACT after upgrading to Windows 10. What is the best way to address those? Hard to say without actually knowing what the issues are in particular. So whoever posted that question, if you could work with our team here to get those specific issues over to us, whether it's an error message or a screenshot of something weird that's happening, that would be really helpful, and we can take a closer look at those. When someone opts out of Swiftpage email, is it possible to have a follow-up email sent with a survey? Unfortunately not, and I think that would be possibly a little bit counterintuitive, that if you're opting out of that email, then we're going to send you another email. So that could be problematic. Now, I have seen some services out there that when you go to the opt-out page, then it gives you an ability to put in sort of why you're opting out and that sort of thing. Unfortunately, that's not something that's there right now with Swiftpage. What's our estimate on when we can upgrade to v18? Again, I mentioned this a little bit ago, but it depends on the scenario and depends on your unique needs and whether or not there's a known issue or anything like that that might be out there that specifically might impact you. But like I said, ACT is working very diligently to address all of those. There's been a number that have already been fixed, some of the major ones that we saw right away out of the gate, and I know they're working diligently to address some of the open ones that are still there. What does API stand for again? Application Programming Interface. How do I get ACT on my cell phone? I apologize. Oh, no problem. Basically, there's two options, or well, really three options. You have ACT Mobile, which is the web-based access to ACT to the live database through an internet browser on your phone. That's one option. We can also synchronize contacts to Google or Outlook, and then a lot of phones will automatically download contacts from those places right into their native address books. And there's also an app called Handheld Contact that we work with and support that actually puts an app on your mobile device that then can synchronize with your main database and will actually download data directly to the device. So there's a variety of options there, and depending on your specific needs, one might be a better fit than the other. To sign in on ACT via my phone, do you use the same password you use to log in on your PC? Yeah, if you're using ACT Mobile, absolutely. That sign in there would be the same username and password you would use to log into ACT on your computer. Can Duplicate Remove Wizard be used with v17? Yes, it can. They go back a number of versions. I have version 16.3. How many users did that allow me as compared to the version 18 allowances? I was told I had 3 users available from phone support. Well, you have to buy licenses for your users that actually need to make changes within the software. So whatever number of licenses you purchased is the number of full version licenses that you own. Versions 17 and versions 18 allow for free browse users, unlicensed browse users. So if you're on 16, then if you own 3 licenses and that's what phone support told you, then you really only have access to 3. If you need 10 people in there actually updating things, you actually have to buy 10 licenses even in version 18. But if you have some people that could just simply look at the data and don't actually need full access to update things, then some of those free browse licenses or free browse users that you can put into version 18 would help you there. So how much does a mapper app cost? It retails for $200. However, we can do volume discounts for clients, and we can also look at what else we're doing with you if we're doing another project or anything like that, and we can offer some discounts off of that. Can we change the color of the contact background to make it white like the CH one? Yeah, absolutely. That's also something done through the tools and design layouts that's in here. So tools, design layouts, go in here. That's actually part of the properties of the background color here, which to view that, you just go to View Properties window, and then you click right here, and there's a background color where you can put in an RGB value or red, green, blue value. You can also click and select from the drop-down of existing values that are in there. Any changes in the interface with LinkedIn? No, not at this time. And just for anybody who's not aware, on the web info tab, it can help you find somebody on LinkedIn, or on the social updates tab, you can connect directly to their profile and have it be sort of like a stored page within there, where you go in and you see their profile each time you go into that tab. But no, that has not changed in the last couple of versions here. Okay, so just a couple minutes left here before noon. We can actually stay on the phone for a few minutes longer, but I do want to get sort of our summary and wrapping things up here for anybody who does need to go. So let me just do that really quick here, and then, like I said, we'll stick around, and if there's some additional questions, we can try to address those. So obviously we've covered a lot today. I just want to make a few points as we start to wrap up here. There's really a lot of great features that are available here in version 18, both for our upgrading clients as well as anybody who's new to ACT and considering implementing it for their business. The new ACT subscription plans deliver a lot of value and make it possible to ensure that you have the access to the latest updates as well as technical support. And for ACT v16 and v17 customers, it's really, really important that you take a look at what you want to do with ACT here while you're still eligible for those loyalty discounts, and before you lose support for this mission-critical tool that you have implemented. And if you're ready to move on something by February 29th, you qualify for even more significant discounts. That's the best pricing we're going to be able to offer all year long. Thank you again for taking your time out of your busy schedules for our ACT v18 preview webinar here. As a reminder, following today's webinar, we're going to be reaching out to you guys. We're going to get an email out to you tomorrow with links to a comparison of ACT features by version, PDF of our slides from today's presentation, as well as a recording of today's webinar. So there'll be a link to all those things within that email. Also check your junk spam folder for that, because these types of emails do have a tendency sometimes to end up there. So if you don't see something from us and you're wondering where it is, check your junk and spam. And over the course of the next few weeks, we'll try to reach out to each one of you individually to talk more about an ACT upgrade and see if it makes sense for your business. So thank you again, and have a great day, everyone. And we'll stick around and see what other questions we can answer here for about another 10 minutes or so. So thanks again, everyone. Okay, some additional questions here. Will v18 work with Q-Sales? So Q-Sales data is a QuickBooks and ACT integration tool. And yes, absolutely, version 18 does work with Q-Sales data. It does require an update to Q-Sales data, though. So if you've been current on your Q-Sales data maintenance, you're entitled to their updates automatically. If not, we might need to look at possibly upgrading your Q-Sales data licenses, but it will definitely work with v18. Does ACT Mobile work with a single user? I want to keep my ACT contacts separate from my general phone book in the phone. So ACT Mobile is part of the ACT Premium suite of products. So if you're a single user, say, and you're on ACT Pro or something like that, then you won't really have ACT Mobile available to you, but an app like Handheld Contact would work. But if you have ACT Premium, though, and you're either hosting that yourself on a server and can do things like host a website from that server, or if you're on a cloud account hosted with ACT, then absolutely, it doesn't matter whether you're a single user or you got 10 people at your office, you're going to be able to use ACT Mobile. And am I able to load on my laptop and my desktop, and how would I coordinate the data? Yeah, you're absolutely able to do that. ACT gives you the flexibility with the licensing to be able to do that. What ACT is primarily looking at from a licensing standpoint is the unique user account. So as long as you're logging into the ACT database with the same user account on both computers, you're good there. Now, as far as coordinating the data between the two, you can do a couple of different things. you could use something like the web product from the laptop when you're on the go, and then access the main database off of the desktop computer where you're hosting that. Or you could also look at doing something like a synchronization, and that would, be maybe more of a traditional setup there, where you've got ACT installed on both computers. One has the main database, one has what we call a remote sync database, and then you periodically click a button when either the two computers are in the same place or they're remotely connected to the same network, and then the synchronization would take care of coordinating the data between the two, sending changes from one to the other and vice versa there. All right. It looks like some of the questions are slowing down, but again, we'll stick on here and see if there's anything else that comes up over the next few minutes and see if there's any additional questions we can have. For anybody dropping off shortly here, again, thank you. We really appreciate your time and attending our webinar today. We hope you found it was very helpful. Okay, I do see one other question here. Best way to bring my v18 info into a new computer. You would install ACT on the new computer and then go ahead and make a backup from the old one and then probably restore that onto the new one, particularly if you're in a single user environment. If this is a multi-user environment though, and say you have something like a remote database that is synchronizing, or if you have the main database hosted on your computer, then there's some other considerations that we need to think about there, and we could address that individually for your situation there. Okay, so question about ACT v18 Pro and the difference between Pro and Premium. So Pro is sort of a pared down version of ACT. It has a user limit of 10 users in total, so you cannot exceed that on Pro. It can only connect to an SQL Express database instance, which means if your database grows beyond a certain size, you could run into some issues relative to the overall size of the database and the underlying database engine that ACT is using. That size would be 10 gigabytes. Additionally, there's some other limitations in Pro, such as it does not include the web and the mobile functionality. Pro has less security options relating to both users and contacts and fields as far as what you can control there. So Pro doesn't really have the customizable user permissions that we were looking at within Manage Users. Pro either has public or private contacts. It doesn't have something called limited access, which is sort of somewhere in between those two. Basically, public are available to all users. Private are available only to one user. Limited access allows you to specify multiple users, but not all, to be able to have access to records, and that's something that's only available in Premium. On fields, you can have fields that are also limited in Premium as well, whereas you can't do that in Pro. So there's a number of things there, and then also the web-based API I don't believe is going to have any functionality relating to Pro here either. Okay. looks like the questions are really slowing down here, but we've got a couple more coming in, and I'll just make sure we address those. Can a price book be created within ACT to provide a way of direct quoting from a parts list? Yeah, inside of the opportunities module within a database like this, there is a products and services area within here, and within that you do have a drop down for the products, and where you can go in and you can enter product list items within here. Name, item number, your cost, the consumer's price, stuff like that can all go right in here. Okay. Literally looks like the questions are slowing down here, so again, I'll just say thank you to everybody for attending. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you need anything, and we'll get that email out to you guys tomorrow with some of the documents from today's presentation along with a link to the recording, and then we'll be in touch to talk a little bit more about V18 and whether or not that makes sense for your business and be a good move for you. So again, thank you. We really appreciate it, and we'll be signing off here.